goes on Ariel's show, and Pereira has my interest. I mean, I got to tell you, I think that Izzy Adesanya is the trifecta. I think any athlete coming into the sport that wants to study the sport and understand the business side of the sport, which is the entertainment side of the sport and making people care about you, has got to study Adesanya. I'll only share for you that Pereira, for what it's worth, is doing his end of this. There's a language barrier, so it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more difficult. And sometimes you got to go to social media where I think it goes through like Google Translate. It comes out perfectly clear. The guy's interesting. He hasn't missed yet. I have not seen him miss yet. He's an indigenous native of Brazil. Now, I bring that to you. Fabiano Scherner, my coach. Very good friends with Glover Teixeira. And Fabiano just spoke with Glover. And Glover just sang his praises privately, the same as he does publicly, which is, look, man, this guy's very good. People know about his kickboxing. They don't know about his grappling. They don't know about his conditioning, man. Let me just vouch for this guy. No, that's very big praise coming from Glover. And Fabiano, who's from Sao Paulo, I believe. If that's not his hometown, I apologize. But was sharing with me about the indigenous and native roots and what that means to Pereira, because Pereira had come out in what's called full dress. It's called native dress. If you guys saw this, he had the headband, but he also had the war paint. And he's paid tribute in the past, and we've even seen it on social media, to archery. And it's an interesting thing. I've gotten more into Prochazka in the last week than I ever thought I would go down. The way that Prochazka handled defeat. It was defeat to an injury, but it was a negative. It was a loss. It was adversity. The way that Prochazka handled that, representing what he did when things were easy, which was the samurai spirit. That's his big thing, Mike, the samurai spirit. But the samurai spirit doesn't give up when things get tough, and most guys do, and he did not. And understanding what's deep and within his roots. Prochazka, he does the sitting, and there's like smoke and the meditation. He does this whole bit, but it turns out it's not a show. That is who he is channeled, and that's who his inner being is. And I only bring that to you because when Pereira starts to do this with the indigenous native roots, and he's not only with the dress that he wanted to pay tribute to, not only with the style, and this is who he wanted to bring the belt back and win it for, but also with some of the archery skills and other stuff. I just think that stuff's interesting, because why are you fighting is a very big deal. And when you talk about samurais and you talk about the indigenous natives of Brazil, there used to be a time, guys, when you needed to have a good fighter amongst you. Back before there was nations, back before there was states, back before there was cities, back before there was villages, you had tribes. And if somebody came to your tribe, you could lose land and you could lose life. You needed to have somebody amongst you who can fight. There was very real things that you had to fight for. Well, over time comes the 1800s, and now this fighting business is going to be a sport. We're going to get a ring, and we're going to do some ropes and put two guys in there without their shirts on. We're going to come up with some rules. But after we come up with the rules, and after we get the audience interested, we have to know what they're fighting for. And they're not fighting for life. They're not fighting for land. So what are they fighting for? Prestige and a little bit of money. It's not enough. And somebody comes out with a belt. There's a belt. There's a champion who will be recognized amongst all of you, and there will only be one. They throw the belt down. You get guys like me to give their whole life, try to get that. It worked, right? It worked. Whoever came up with the belt, it's an amazing concept of how far it went. Whoever thought to do a gold, silver, and bronze at the Olympiad? You have people giving up their entire life. Not just their life until they get it. Their life then after. They're either completely depressed drunks who didn't reach their goal and will tell you about 1980 that was boycotted, Or they had a level of success and all they want to do is tell you about 1984 in Los Angeles, how we didn't win the Russians game. I mean, I'm just sharing for you. It's one of these things that never ends. And so when you do find out, you got a guy that is channeling samurai, then you go find out about the samurai code, and then you watch him, you go, son of a bitch, he's living it. He's not just preaching, this guy's living it. Yuri Prohaska's the real deal. And then you look to Pereira. And he's living it. I went back last night because Pereira and Chimaev get into whatever they get into. I go back and I watch Pereira and Adesanya. And I am not done over here discussing on a routine and regular basis Adesanya and Pereira, because Adesanya and Pereira aren't done fighting. They're not even done fighting for championships. Those two are going to meet again. And by goodness, if Adesanya beats him, they're probably going to meet yet again. All right. So I go back and watch the fight, and it's a very peculiar match. Like, I could explain to you Israel Adesanya. I can't do it. I can't do what he does. I can't do those setups. I can't do those movements, but I understand them. I understand them very well because Anderson Silva did a very close version to them. Anderson Silva would get accused of being cocky in his fights or disrespecting his opponents. I don't know if anybody studied Anderson more than me. That just wasn't the case. Those were his setups. Tommy Hearns, remember Tommy Hearns? Tommy Hearns could throw that shoulder over, whoa, spook you, boom, boom, and get his shots in. Every fighter throws some kind of a flinch. Machida turns his hips. Maybe you saw Kayla Harrison over the weekend. She's doing the Machida, turning your hips, but it makes your opponent look, whoa, what are they doing? Just a little bit of surprise factor, and Adesanya will go out there and do that even in robotics sometime, boom, boom, before he comes in. Hey, do you remember Conor did this to Eddie Alvarez? He just puts his hands behind his back. As cool as it looked when Conor did it, he wasn't actually attempting to embarrass his opponent. It was a setup. It was a risky one because his hands are down, but his hands come fight. This wasn't just to do. He brought those hands back, boom, boom, with a 1-2 and put him down. You have to understand that. Now, I do understand Adesanya, even though I don't have the mannerisms to show you it. I understand why it works. I understand why he's setting you up. I understand why Adesanya was able to touch Pereira and not get touched back. What I don't fully understand is how Pereira was able to touch Adesanya. I didn't see a speed difference, but I also didn't see meaningful tricks, meaningful setups. When in the business you'll hear announcers calling feints. I didn't see those from Pereira. I damn near saw him walking Izzy down. In the 5th and final round, he did walk him down. The end. He came across his court. One of the reasons Izzy couldn't move is he had a fence behind him, and one of the reasons Izzy had a fence behind him is because Pereira walked him down. How do you walk Adesanya down? Can't get a hand on him. I mean, you just can't. How many fights have you seen where Adesanya hadn't been hit? And he goes 5-0. He's never rocked. He was never wobbled. He's on his feet the whole time. Who else can go on their feet for 25 minutes with the next best guy in the world and not be wobbled? Nobody. So it doesn't happen. He did fight after fight after fight, round after round after round. How did Pereira hit him? Pereira's got very good height. He's got very good size. He's taller than Izzy. I know that they do a tail of the teep. I didn't see it. Generally, whoever's taller has the longer reach. Okay, great. Is that part of it? I'll drink to that. Pereira also does what's called punches and bunches. There was no stick and move. There was no, I'm looking for that one big one. No, I was looking for a little one. I was looking for a medium one, and then I'm looking for a big one. Everything was punches and bunches, but he still walked him down. He still didn't set him up. He's still got the most elusive guy in the history of the sport, I believe. And many people will give that credit to Anderson Silva. In the history of the sport, I don't think you've seen anybody more elusive than Adesanya. If you'll remember the great Robert Whittaker after the first time they fought, Robert Whittaker is always candid. He always just comes out and tells you what happened. He said that's what happened. I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him. He set me up left. He comes right and a punch is coming down the middle. Fed was I mean, he really had to regroup and re-gear to have a different performance in the second outing. I get it. Whitaker told the truth. How did Pereira hit him? I appreciate the power, but you're born with a level of that. I appreciate the range. You work on that in the gym and it comes along pretty quickly. How do you hit him? How's he coming out in 3 beats and all 3 are landing when other guys can't get 3 off in a 5-minute period and they're second best guy in the world, they're number 1 contender? I mean, it's just a question. I don't have the answer. I understand what Adesanya's doing, even though I can't mimic it. I can do what Pierre is doing. I understand, right? I understand jab, cross, hook. I understand roll your shot. I understand all of these things. I don't quite have the height. I don't quite have the reach, but I'm sure that I understand, but I don't know how he did it. How is he touching? How is he forget about the knockout. You got big power and you hit the guy in the chin, you knock the guy. How did he touch him? How did he get his hands on him? What was the setup? I watched that 5th round and then I watched it again and I watched it again. What was the setup? There was a guy that broke Chuck Liddell down when Chuck was knocking everybody out. Guy said, I could deal with Chuck. He's a pro wrestler named Mark Marrow. But he was a Golden Gloves boxer or something to this degree. I mean, he was just having fun. He wasn't really getting ready to fight Chuck, but he understood boxing. He said, you know what, I think I could deal with Chuck Liddell. Because I noticed what Chuck does, and everybody has a tell. Everybody has a poker hand, believe me. And the guy said before Chuck throws that big, I guess it'd be this way, that big overhand right, before he does it every time, he blinks. Nobody had noticed it before. We went back, we watched video, son of a gun. Mark Marrow of the WCW had it right. Before Chuck would throw that big shot, he did a blink. Everybody's doing something. How is Pereira hitting him?